As people are rolling in. Thank you, Matt. Welcome everybody to the November Employee Forum meeting, all via Zoom this time around, but we have a hybrid meeting coming up in December where we will be doing our kind of winter social get together and, have some refreshments and socialize and see each other off into the December winter break. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, joining us via Zoom today, we've got Chris Clemens, who is our provost. We're going to do our traditional provost roundtable with him this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris for some updates.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. I'll give some updates and then we can have conversation. Mostly what we're doing in the provost's office at the top level is trying to connect and deliver on some of the chancellor's priorities that were the subject of the working groups over the summer. The two that we are mostly involved with are AI, and you may have seen the AI accelerator program that was announced. It does have both faculty, student, and staff components. So hopefully you saw there's some staff awards for AI. I think what we're excited about there and what you'll see coming, one of the key projects from the deans and librarian is to put up a studio in the library. This will be a place where you could go if you, for instance, wanted to build an AI chatbot. And if you played with this, even my son who didn't finish college is building an AI chatbot. You can take a set of knowledge and build your own AI tool around that particular set of things, and then it will be able to answer questions and search, more than search, but be able to digest information and help you find it. And there were a number of projects submitted to do such things, and to enable those, we're going to try to set up this studio, which will be a place, and so you can go and people will teach you how to use some of the tools that are in the more advanced ChatGPT studio that we will be able to make available to people as part of the program. So have a look at what's going on there. I think we have a number of things going on in AI, but the big one out of my office are those accelerator programs. And I can put a link in the chat later. The second one that we're thinking about, and we have been thinking about even before the working group, is how would we expand our presence in applied science and engineering? We have, of course, BME joint with NC State. We have environmental science and engineering. So we do have engineering on this campus. And we also have our applied physical sciences department. And the question is, how do we form that into something that might make visible career or really degree programs for our students beyond the ones we have? So we're modeling that with a financial model and a space model. And as you might guess, because we make money on tuition and appropriations for teaching new things, as long as our enrollments keep up, the problem is space, of course. So the pacing item on any new expansion in those areas will depend on us having the space to do it. So that's, I'm going to give a report to the chancellor on the financial model next week. So that's moving along. The other thing that we're doing, and I feel like for the first time, is we're running the schedule. And what I mean by that is there are a number of things that the provost's office does every year that had gotten bumped and confused during the pandemic. And I feel like it's the first year we're back on the normal cadence of operations. So that means, and with new programs. So some of the new things that we talked about for 2 years in faculty affairs, that is leave programs for term faculty, a new faculty cluster hiring program, a new leadership programs. Those are all now being folded into what sort of looks like the annual schedule of announcements. So what the faculty and staff and students have seen come out of our office looks much more like a normal year. We've announced the distinguished professor process. So we're in the year where the provost's office solicits nominations for distinguished professors. We've put out the just on Friday, the Academic Leadership Network and our new group of Provost Distinguished Faculty Leaders program was announced. We also announced the cluster hire program. That's the outgrowth of the VTE program to hire in strategic areas as a cluster, and we got great proposals for that. And we've actually made some announcements about which clusters to the people who applied. And then there were the catalyst hires, which are the old postdoc research postdocs. For reasons of making it work better without some of the problems of dropping postdocs between their postdoc program and the faculty program, we just made it a faculty hiring program that helps fund new faculty positions in research areas that we're targeting. And Penny got very, very strong proposals for cluster hires in some important areas there. So really, I feel like if we can get all that on the rails and run the year, then we'll have the template for how all the new programs roll out in subsequent years. So hopefully these new things become part of our routine, and we measure their success, and I think they will be successful, and then we just keep them as part of the normal operating procedure. I am working with students too, especially grad students, to address their stipends. We had done some adjustment to our minimum stipends, but if you look at our peer groups and the grad students have collected this data, we're still near the bottom. And as the grad students point out, if you pay typical rent, even in Carborough, 59% of your paycheck is gone after you pay rent, and that makes it really hard to live. So I think we've got some work to do there, as well as faculty and staff salary parity. And so we have conversations going on about that. And then last thing, Giselle, who I just sent the link, our senior vice provost, has been out at the meeting of the chief academic officers in Morganton this week. Of course, part of the discussion is how we help and assist Asheville and the campuses, even community college campuses affected by Helene. So you've probably kept up with a lot of the work the campus is doing. A lot of the Chapel Hill, what we were called upon by the system to do is more long-term. There were some immediate things, but this is going to be a long process. And I think we've made ourselves available in several ways to the system on an ongoing basis. And part of that work, will be through the chief academic officers supporting those provosts in the affected area. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. There's a lot of system office and Board of Governors work. The Board of Governors just met. The message we're hearing there, and I think loud and clear, is that after many years of really constrained tuition, what we're allowed to charge, the state is starting to believe the budget surpluses that have allowed generous enrollment dollar increases are going to start to disappear. And we're going to have to be more tuition funded. So they've opened the conversation about raising tuition. And it's been held flat for so long with so much inflation. That's part of our budget tension, I would say. It is, however, going to be aligned to better efficiency. So we're going to have to show that we're as efficient as possible in order to justify asking for these tuition. So I think part of the work of the next year for the whole campus is going to ask, are we efficiently using our spaces? Are our classrooms actually in use? Are we scheduling well? I've made some memos about using those better. There will be more memos about that. And as long as we can demonstrate that we're an efficient operation, I think we will be able to get permission to start to move a little bit on tuition and fees so that we can fund better salaries and the operation as it expands a little bit, because the chancellor wants us to grow. So that's sort of the areas of interest in my world. Of course, I know everyone's mind outside the university is on an election, and that will happen next week. I'm happy to talk about preparations for that. I think mostly in my office, there's not much to do, but there are some preparations going on. And there's some campus events for our students and everyone else that the Program for Public Discourse has put up. And I know there's some new spaces that the students wanted that we're going to have. I forget what it's not a reflection space, it's a serenity space that the students working with student affairs are going to put up. So happy to talk about any of that. Let me stop though, because we have limited time and I want plenty of chance for people to ask me about anything on their minds. So thank you, Katie, for giving me the time.
Thank you, Chris. We'll start. We've got a question in the chat from Liz. Elizabeth, do you want to bring your question forward? You want me to read it? I'll read it for her. So will the university consider taking any role in educating and protecting students from predatory loan systems while tuition goes up?
Yeah, first let me say that other than out-of-state tuition, the increases will be modest. So we're not talking about large increases. Second, we already do this, and you may or may not be aware, but Rachel, our Vice Provost for Enrollment, has set up a financial well-being center. And I think it's either open or about to open in SASB building. And we have a way now to help students with their financial well-being. And in fact, we have ways for them to engage in the curriculum with that center. So we do have that new thing. And that would be the main point of engagement for students who have questions about how they're going to finance their education or their financial aid package or anything else. We do still have the challenge around the Department of Education rolling out the Pell Grants, right? We are going to be a pilot site for the new system that's supposed to be working in the next cycle. We did see a lot of uncertainty in student financial aid because of the late rollout of financial aid packages, beyond our control. But we are one of the partners working with the Department of Ed to do better in the next cycle.
To your point around the elections, Natasha put in the chat that the Serenity Space will be hosted in the Carolina Union Class of 2000 Lounge in the month of November. Natasha, are you aware whether or not that's open to staff, or is it just student focused?
I'm not positive. My understanding is that it was an initiative from undergraduate student government leadership. And so I believe the intention is to be very student facing.
Got it. Makes sense. Rebecca, you had some questions.
Good morning. And mainly a comment and just something to make sure that we and primarily administration keeps in mind, over the past few years, staff has been asked to do more with less. There have been a lot of staff positions eliminated. We've already been asked to be super efficient, and I want to make sure that if we are raising tuition and we're needing to demonstrate that, we are efficient in our operations, that we don't continue to ask staff to do more with less. We are already facing extreme burnout. I know personally, it's definitely been a challenge to be continuing to ask to do more. And so I just think as we look at efficiencies, we need to be mindful that staff have already made a huge contribution to that efficiencies. And I don't want us to end up facing more burnout and staffing shortages as we move forward with tuition increases.
Thank you, Rebecca, for that comment. I was just having that conversation with this morning. I said, I feel we've been squeezed a little in the budget, and not just that. We've also had so many vacancies simply because of the inability to hire as quickly as some people were lost. And so I know in many parts of the university, there's already the stress of extreme efficiency. That's not really efficiency at some level. That's overwork due to understaffing, right? That's a different thing from efficiency. But
I think that's
right.
a really great point.
Yeah,
there's definitely a difference between efficiency and too much. And speaking very maybe too clearly, too plainly, we have been understaffed until finally, around last December. So it's been about a year we haven't. But my counselor and I have talked about, do I need to take some FMLA time to protect my own mental health? It has been that intense. And so that's a little maybe too personal sharing, but I can assure you I am likely not the only one that has had to have a care provider go, oh, hey, you need to stop. Because some of us don't. And I think that's the nature, and maybe that's something that's worth saying, the nature of staff who work in higher education. We care about what we do. We are not in it for the money. We are not in it because it's easy. We are in it because we love our students. We love the people we work with. We really believe in what we do. And we don't always have a very good off button because we want to make sure we serve and we serve well. And so we are prone to being willing to do maybe more than we should.
Well, I appreciate that. I know you're not the only one. This is the problem, of course, with jobs of passion. You have to sometimes limit your own passion to protect yourself. So, And then there are things we simply shouldn't be asking, right? We should be adequately staffed. So the good news is this is not asking for a budget cut or new things. We were actually asked to document the efficiencies we've already put in place. And I will send the message that understaffing is not the same as an efficiency. That's an abuse if it goes on. So I think that's not the intent. Of course, it's up to us to frame this and respond as we go down the path. So we have the freedom to describe what it is we have been doing. And I will just tell you, I have been doing things even in my own operation to become, while we roll out new programs, to actually become more efficient. And I think there's some things we can do. But yeah, I think we do have to be sensitive that it's not just saying you have to cut percentages of dollars out of things, because that's not a practical way to be efficient. It's more about how do we make sure we're not duplicating. I found a lot of duplication in our programs when I came in at my level, and I've been slowly trying to push those things that go together so we can get them right. So, but I appreciate your comments.
So Shayna first, and then we've got a question in the chat, and then we'll go to Liz.
Hi, thank you for being here. And I just wanted to mirror everything Rebecca just said and just add something to that. We are passionate, that is true, but we're also finding that we're such a skeletal crew now that when you do take time off for your mental health, you come back and you're absolutely underwater. So it's not just that we're passionate and we're driven. All of that is absolutely true, but we've hit critical mass where we just can't have work-life balance. And so oftentimes, I know for myself, when I take vacation, I'm on my computer at least 2 hours a day, even on vacation. So I want to add that bit. And I also want to add that I think Rebecca said we haven't been whole since December. Is that right? I want to say we haven't really been whole since people started leaving during COVID. A lot of people during that time who were eligible to retire said, okay, I'm out. This is a lot. And I don't think we've hit a balance yet. So thank you for listening, but I did want to add those two little pieces to Rebecca's comments.
Yes, thank you. I agree. I observe it. I've actually observed it even before the pandemic, but it did become very short as we moved into some understaffed areas that are understaffed. So.
All right. So next, Jay had a question in the chat. Is there any anticipated changes in guidance from South Building to individual units on campus about hybrid work? And also a supplement to that question, he asked, what is your favorite Halloween candy?
Okay. Yeah, well, so hybrid work actually can contribute to efficiency. If you think about it, what are the efficiency metrics that they want? How are we using our space, right? And I feel that we were able to avoid some capital costs by allowing more remote work in some areas after the pandemic. And so I think the hybrid teaching, and for instance, our summer school now is I think half online. So we still do online teaching that we learned during the pandemic. So I think there is a connection between those things. The form it will take is there will be a question asked, how are we using our space? And it may require that, that folks who are more offsite than onsite have a different office arrangement on campus. And of course, there's a lot we can do with, I think, parking and to be more efficient. So I think those are things I won't be addressing as provost, but I know that finance and operations will be looking at how to measure. We have to be able to measure before we know that we're efficient. My favorite Halloween candy, there was, when I was young, there was a lady in my neighborhood who always gave us a popcorn ball. Does anybody make these anymore? It was a concoction of popcorn mixed with Karo syrup and made into and this lady would put food coloring in it so you could have, a blue one or a green one, and it had kind of unhealthy color, but something about eating popcorn with sugar out of a popcorn ball
It's salty and sweet, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that's not a candy, but it was something we only got at Halloween. It was, you didn't make it any other time of the year. So I always look forward to popcorn ball.
I love it. Liz, you have your hand up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm in a weird place. So I don't expect an answer to this. It's more like introducing a topic that's been on my mind a while. And the two of the topics that you led in with, and I appreciate them, really keep this at the front of my brain right now. We don't have a lot of representation on this forum that's from any sustainability efforts on campus. I'm not sure why. And if I'm mistaken about that, I'm so sorry. I'll be wrong again about something later. There's a lot of AI, there's a lot of multiple platforms. If there was even a genie to keep in a bag, it's definitely out or out of a bottle. I feel so disconnected sometimes from the AI and the electronic education, and it's all so wonderful and it provides us a lot, although we put a lot of effort into using these platforms and sustaining them. And then there's the climate crisis. And I feel there's this huge disconnect between the amount of energy it actually takes to run and maintain all of the electronic systems, and no awareness whatsoever of the fact that these don't happen magically, that it takes power to run them, to store them, and to keep the computers that everything is stored on cool. And it does matter. It matters how this energy is made. It matters who owns it. It matters that it's not an infinite resource. Will we think about connecting the dots and be as sustainable as we can, because we're seeing the impact of this right in front of our very eyes? And I don't expect an answer to this. I just really want to introduce the topic.
Well, thank you. I think it's a topic that extends well beyond the campus, obviously, into the national and international conversations around sustainability and climate change. You see Microsoft talking about reopening 3 Mile Island. You hear about modular nuclear being revived as well, not revived because it's been an issue. It's been a set of projects to do modular nuclear, but you see them being hurried along by the need for data centers to have electricity. And I guess you probably saw the announcement that Microsoft purchased a lot of land in North Carolina yesterday. They announced this. I assume that's for a data center, and one of the things that will happen is they will follow electricity cost. Our grid is 50% nuclear, and nuclear has not been a cheap option. But if you compare our electricity prices at about 12 cents to California's at over 30, people are not going to build the data centers in California. They're going to be building them here. So it will become a state issue as they attach to a power grid that has to provide capacity. And the question about how we do that. And, as a physicist, I think nuclear power is a carbon-free source that will run us for about 7,000 years with the fuel we know about. And it's a great idea if we can manage the safety requirements. We have operated modular nuclear reactors on ships now for 60 or 70 years, mostly safely. And so, I'm sure that's going to happen. But point taken, I think the bigger question is, what is our sustainability plan right now? I know we have a whole webpage on our 3 Zeros commitment. We have a chief sustainability officer. I don't know how much that's been refreshed. And so I think it's a question I can take back to the leadership team and ask, as we go into this AI, what are our goals around sustainability?
And how much the sustainability office is interfacing with that AI initiative and kind of being strategic and adding to that plan.
Yeah, I'll say that's probably valuable, but let me just admit that we are doing AI in a way that monitors the cost. And so we're going to be efficient without sustainability concerns, because we simply can't afford to blow out some big visible AI purchase that then doesn't get used properly. Part of the accelerator project goal as we ramp up the tools that are available, is to make sure that people don't waste the tools doing things inefficiently or things that are frivolous. So I think we are trying to channel our efforts to be highly efficient of dollars, and that will automatically make us, a contributor to sustainability. And Mike Barker has been great, along with Mark McNeely, to make sure our programs are designed not to be wasteful. But yeah, let me take that back, because I do think some attention to that is worthwhile.
I love all the energy in the chat around this conversation around sustainability. We got even some folks. Have we considered applying solar energy to help power campus? Plenty of sun from those Carolina blue skies. I love that notion. But maybe this is a topic.
Well, the students have led there, right? They have
Yeah.
their respect committee, RESPC, and they use student fees to occasionally populate buildings with solar power. And most of the solar power campus may have been brought to us by that student effort. Now, of course, at nighttime, you need a coal plant running here, and you need to be hooked to we don't really make most of our electricity with the coal plant. That's for making hot, making steam and power. It's a cogeneration, very efficient facility, but it is burning coal. We buy most of our electricity from Duke, and the bill is in the, our expenses for electricity are like $70 million. So it's not a trivial part of our enterprise.
But yeah, maybe this is a conversation we can bring to a future employee forum meeting, where we maybe bring our chief sustainability officer out to have a conversation and look at what we're doing around sustainability moving forward. So great conversation. Any other questions for Provost Clemens?
I had one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Follow up on the financial well-being. How do incoming students find out about, so they start out with this financial knowledge and to avoid the predatory lenders?
Well, I think the idea with the Financial Wellbeing Center, and of course, they're happy to have feedback as well, is to introduce it at orientation as a resource, to have some basic financial information as a component of the course and the curriculum now that's about thriving at Carolina. You may not be aware, there's now a required course called Thriving at Carolina, and so the center will have the issues of financial well-being will be part of that course, and then there will be a connection made to this center. So every first year will get knowledge about it, but in at least 2 places, but in the curriculum. That's my understanding.
Awesome. Could UNC take more of a lead on the dialogue rechanging the predatory lending systems? It's a great question. We lead.
That is a good question. I will ask that of my vice provost for enrollment and see we may already actually be in that conversation. Rachel is very well known and very prominent nationally. It was we who were called up to testify about the delays in the FAFSA rollout, and she may already have a role there. Let me ask and find out. She's very passionate about financial well-being and was quite persistent to get this center up. So I credit her persistence with having this resource.
Natasha?
Hi, good morning. My question is related to the campus safety precautions during the week of October 7th. I know I saw the statement that was put from the Disability Advocates Committee around some of the challenges that a lot of our students with varying disabilities had accessing classroom buildings or anything like that. And I think the question that kind of comes to my head is further on, I think, the grounding concept of accessibility in our academic buildings so that students can adequately access classes any day of the week, regardless of circumstances on campus. And so I wanted to know where or what kind of conversations are happening in the provost office around what does it look like to ensure that our buildings are fully accessible to all students that attend Carolina.
Yeah, thank you for that. Accessibility, of course, a challenge, especially in older buildings. The most recent victory there was we have one building, you may know, where philosophy resides, that there is no elevator that makes it accessible, and so simply can't hold some classes in there. That project got funded by advocacy from the chair, the dean, and myself to our finance, and so now it's going to go. so we're doing as much as we can to direct the funds that we have for renovation to take care of disability projects. They get a very high priority. That doesn't mean we're solving all of it. It means we've got a schedule on which we're trying to address it as a priority. Let me address the October 7th day, because I think that one's important. The security plan for that day was written around a very specific threat to operations, not to safety, but to operations. And the specific buildings that were limited access that day were for the reasons that we had knowledge something was planned that would have been disruptive in those buildings. That being said, the execution of the plan left much to be desired along about 3 different lanes. Because we didn't want to announce that we were doing it, because it would have led to a change in the operational plan for the disruption, we notified people the night before that they would have to use a 1 card to get in, and it was based on students and instructors. So my dean and Sills was an affected building, but we did not tell administrators and staff in every case. So he didn't even know that his building was going to be locked. We were supposed to have people there to direct folks to an entrance where they could go in and to help with access for disabled students or others who needed accommodations. That worked in many cases, but it didn't work in every case. When we learned about that, we adjusted the plan and tried to do better. So I apologize, that I think it was a sound plan. The execution was not perfect. We learned from that. If we have to do it again, we will hopefully do better. So we got that letter. We're going to answer that letter in much the way I just said, that we are aware that we did not succeed in every aspect of what we'd hoped for on that plan. So I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Time for one more question from Chris. No more questions?
One more.
Go ahead, Arlene.
Did you get a lot of trick-or-treaters last night?
We moved in the pandemic to a more rural area where the houses are far apart. And so we were very disappointed not to have trick-or-treaters willing to walk all the way down to our house. So at some point, my wife said, we got to take off and go to our old neighborhood to hang out with kids trick-or-treating. I was too tired. She went and hung out there. So I did not get a lot of trick-or-treaters, just based on the yield is not so high when the houses are far apart. People want to go to dense neighborhoods and clean up. So we didn't.
Excellent. All right, Chris. Well, thanks as always for coming out. We really appreciate these Provost and Chancellor roundtables. It's a great opportunity to interact and have a conversation with you and your team. So,
well, thank you, Katie. And I usually start with this, but let me end with it, expressing my thanks to you, to the forum, and of course to all the staff who make this university run. I really appreciate, we all appreciate what you do. Please do not hesitate to raise issues of importance to me outside of this meeting if something comes up. We will always listen and try to address when we have a way to address, and do better when we have failed to do as well as we might.
Thanks for that, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, we've got a couple special presentations this morning. The first one I'm going to start with is actually Nate Knuffman was not able to be with us in person this morning, but he did want to provide his quarterly finance and operations updates via video recording. So I'm going to play that. Give me a moment to share my screen. But if there's questions that come up during this presentation, feel free to jot those down. Matt Banks sent out the request yesterday for the call for questions for our next VC meeting. So if we have questions for Nate and his team around these updates, please feel free to populate those questions in advance of our Vice Chancellor representatives meeting. And we'll get those questions to Nate and his team. So give me 2 seconds while I share my screen and we'll watch a quick video from Nate. Okay. Oh, hang on, let me stop sharing my screen. I think I have to click one more button to share the audio with this. Share sound, there we go. Okay, let's see.
Good morning. Thank you first. Thanks to Katie for inviting me to give an update today. And I'm very sorry I can't be there in person. I have a few updates, mostly about our budget process as we start our planning for fiscal year 25-26. So before getting into that, first thing, a new budget book was published. So it is on our website.
Y'all are hearing this, correct? I just want to make sure. I can't see anybody who's
Yes.
like thumbs up. Okay, perfect.
But
We
there's
are
there's no
hearing, Katie,
picture.
but we're not
Okay.
seeing.
Okay, hang on.
Well, I see like a portion of, okay.
How about now?
UNC.edu. Again, that's
There we go.
budget.unc.edu. We're really proud of this work. A lot of good content in there. Encourage you to look at it. Another topic, wanted to mention just restructuring within finance and operations. We have split the finance and budget team into two separate departments. This is a common model within higher ed. It's just increasingly very difficult to find one person to have North Carolina specific budget knowledge and the traditional finance, treasury, accounting expertise. So our budget team is being led by Lindsay Farling, who is now the Associate Vice Chancellor for Budget and Data Analysis. And we have a search underway for our finance ABC. Really good committee, strong pool of candidates. We are hoping that will be filled by January. One other note on just personnel within finance and operations, Chris Dobek is our new Executive Director of Transportation and Parking. My understanding is he might be on the agenda after this, so glad you get to hear from him directly. Chris will be a great member of the team, and we look forward to his leadership moving forward with that important department. Shifting gears over to the budget process this year for fiscal year 25-26. Lindsay Farling is leading that process. What's new? Well, one thing is it's starting earlier this year. We started 2 weeks earlier, beginning of October. And really that was an effort to formalize, to really break the budget process into two almost. There's formalizing a base budget, which is kind of our starting point, and then having a separate conversation on expansion items or new items of funding. We think this will allow more time to just get the starting point correct and maybe a little less time spent on disagreements over what's in and what's out. We also think it helps us align with how the state does this process. So we think that will be an improvement. A second thing that's new this year is really adding metrics. We think this is important for adding context for what's happening with our budget, and then also just telling our story. We've asked that metrics reflect individual unit scope, complexity, and overall performance. I will say this is not easy to do. And the feedback I've received so far is it's been a bit of a challenge on campus just to think about taking the breadth of our units and what we do and distilling that into a couple measures is really tough, and finding that right balance. And so that's to be expected. This is the first time through for the campus. We're working through that together on that, but we think it'll help with the overall process. I mean, there's a bigger goal in mind here, just for context, and that's really just continuing on this to make progress on this maturity curve for how we handle the budget process. And we want to try to get away from just simply doing an accounting and transparency around what the resources are, which is really important by itself. But we want to keep evolving and getting into discussions about what we're getting for those investment of dollars. And so we think the metrics will start to help us have those kind of conversations. As we look to this year, in terms of funding availability, we believe there'll be limited funds available. We're working through that right now to refine what dollars we expect to have available. In terms of budget priorities, we're stressing fiscal responsibility, campus renewal and expansion, return on investment to the state, and empowering research excellence. We'll have more time to go through those in more detail, but those are the big priorities. Resource requests are due November 22nd. Final budget submissions are due December 20th. We'll be working with different units on campus with budget meetings during the month of December. We'll be finalizing all of our recommendations during January and February, and then ultimately bringing those to the Board of Trustees for review and approval in March, and then submission to the Board of Governors in May. So that's the campus budget process and some updates there. You know, looking at the state, you know, our expectations are it will be a little tighter this year. We expect there to be some pressure on our reserves, many of those to be depleted due to Helene. I will say we're fortunate as a state to have sizable reserves at the state level, just to be able to help address this situation. We don't expect there to be as much recurring funding availability, probably a little bit more difficult environment for LSI and the size of that. Our system process, the system is beginning their process to identify legislative priorities. We expect there will likely to be continued discussion around at least a couple things. One, performance funding has been a big topic at the state level. Also, NC Promise and how those institutions are funded moving forward, I think will be topics that will certainly be talked about at the legislature from the system side. Switching off of budget, looking ahead to the Board of Trustees next week, a couple quick notes. Just it's a big meeting for tuition and fees. So this is each year, November, we bring our tuition and fee recommendations to the board for action. The big items this year, one, there's a sizable tuition increase proposal for non-residents. We're going to recommend a 10% increase in non-resident tuition. When you look at the demand and the overall number of applications, plus just the gap on where we're priced relative to peers, we think there is room for a sizable increase there. Also, we're going to propose a fee increase over the next 4 years to help fund a new campus rec and wellness facility. We spent time this summer as a work group looking at our physical master plan in the building and in the area that really kind of rose to the top in terms of urgency was our campus rec facility. And it's just increasingly not competitive. And that's before we're entering a phase of potential enrollment growth. So we felt like there's a added urgency to address that. While I have a moment just to thank so many people who serve on those various committees on the tuition and fee process. We have a very robust process. It takes a lot of time. So a lot of appreciation for the work there. One other topic that will probably come up next week of the trustees that at least I'll be speaking to some is just space utilization. So there's some interest in the strategic initiatives committee meeting on that topic. And I'll be discussing just what we've been doing at UNC to better manage space, just improving our data, governance, and getting into a little bit about the next steps on how we might motivate optimization on the campus. So those are a few items for next week at the Board of Trustees. I also want to just note a couple things with respect to facility services. First, a huge shout out to our grounds and building services teams. A lot of hard work to make the campus look so great for the October Chancellor installation event and University Day. New native plantings at the Old Well, all these things were just an incredible amount of work, looked great. So just want to recognize those efforts. You're seeing a lot of visible construction on campus. Hopefully people see the Keenan Flagler expansion, Bingham right here on Polk Place, Memorial Hall roof, Carrington's making a lot of progress. Just generally at the campus, we're entering a phase of just more capital projects, more construction. We're thinking about growth of the campus, more enrollment, and that's likely going to mean more of this work happening around campus. It's exciting, but again, it doesn't happen without the great work of our facilities team. And I just want to, again, just note how proud we are of the work there and how exceptional it's been. So with that, thanks again for the opportunity to provide some updates, and I look forward.
All right, that does it for Nate's video updates. Again, if you have questions for Nate, please feel free to submit questions via the Qualtrics poll Matt sent out yesterday, and we'll get those addressed at our November VC meeting coming up. All right, well, with that said, we've got one more special presentation. We've got a meet and greet with Chris Dobek, who is our new Executive Director of Transportation and Parking. Chris, thanks for being with us. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just have a conversation. We'll talk a little bit about transportation and parking here at UNC.
Great. Katie, thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here this morning with everybody. As everyone has said and Nate introduced earlier, my name is Chris Dobek. I'm the new Executive Director for Transportation and Parking. Most recently worked at NC State University, 8 years in the transportation department down there. Honestly, I'm thrilled to death to be here with you this morning. This is just a great opportunity. I do want to recognize my Associate Director, Karsim's on the call with us as well. I am going to ask for a pass at this first meeting. This is week 5, so I don't know everything just yet, but I'm here for you. And if I don't have the answer, Karsim and I will certainly follow up in the near future. So friends, thank you for the opportunity. We're here for you.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll keep it light and breezy today. I'll say, I know I've enjoyed working with Cheryl, your predecessor. Really just the opportunity to participate in the advisory committee for transportation and parking, the ACT group, has been really enlightening. And I think it's a great tool and resource that I think your role can take advantage of in getting the perspectives all across campus of all of your different constituencies. So I would encourage you to make use of ACT moving forward. So that would be my recommendation. But yeah, I think there's other ways the forum interacts with transportation and parking. I know we've got the Parking Appeals Committee is housed here in the Employee Forum. So any parking appeals that come through and have an appeal beyond the decision made in transportation and parking come to a group that is put together by forum members, but also has faculty and student representation on it. So we have that group under our purview. So we work with your team in that capacity as well. So lots of interaction and engagement with the forum. And I think we've talked about in your interview that you have a similar kind of relationship. You had a similar relationship at NC State with their staff senate. So looking forward to continuing that as well. Do you have questions for us?
No, I'm here for you to take it all in. Just on the note of the advisory committee, we've decided here internally we're going to reconvene in January in light of the holidays and the final schedules with some of our students involved. So information should be forthcoming about a meeting date and time in January.
Gotcha. Great. And Arlene says in the chat, at least coming from state, you won't be completely surprised by the complexities of parking in Carolina. Touche. Any questions for Chris as he comes on to this position? Large shoes to fill from Cheryl, for sure. None that are easy breezy. Okay.
I haven't.
I
I do have an easy breezy question.
I love it. Go ahead.
Has it been hard changing your wardrobe from red to blue?
Yes, so difficult. I have a closet full of red ties. So my daughter is a senior here, so we have been shopping, trying to change my wardrobe. She's had a lot of fun with that. But yes, it has been difficult on the clothing front. But great question. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, better in Carolina blue, that's for sure.
Yeah, our marketing friends are on the call with us, and they made a comment last week about my headshot having a red tie and a red background, and I think they're requesting very politely that I change my headshot. I think I'm reading between the lines on that one.
Got to listen to their advice.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Natasha?
I was just saying I'm usually really quiet during these meetings and I just have questions today. So Chris, thanks for joining us. It's good to meet you. I have a question related to, I know parking is really complicated here, right? And I think part of that is, each department and parking coordinators and the way passes are allocated. And I know there's a lot of Tetris and things that I imagine go into that. What advice do you have for staff who might get hired on mid-year and maybe passes have been allocated, or you generally just have a new staff member that's having a hard time accessing a parking pass that might need one or really benefit from one? Is there a process or anything that they can do with central parking to potentially get a pass?
Karsim, I may need your help on this one, but I'm going to attempt. Natasha, I believe that answer is no, not the time. As a result of the 5-year plan work that occurred, our office used to maintain a separate wait list. So we did our department allocations and then we had a separate wait list, and that did create some confusion for folks. And then our separate wait list was a temporary permit. So any new employee, I would recommend you work directly with your parking liaison. And I've tasked our team to increase our communications with all the liaisons across campus. I think there's 200 independent liaisons we're working with right now. But we do want to drive you back to your liaison for those processes. Carson, did I miss anything or misspeak?
Yeah, and I would just add, Natasha, I would suggest if parking coordinators do find themselves in that situation, that it'll be a good opportunity to inform their employee about our CAP program, our commuter alternative program, until a space may open up within the allocation of the parking coordinator. So, that's the only feedback that I will have.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Question. Any other questions for Chris? Do you prefer Chris or do you prefer Dobek? I've heard this is a nickname for you.
Let's came up the interview. I do go by Dobek. I'm the third person person, but I will answer to anything as long as it's polite. I do want to go back to the comments that Chris and Nate made earlier about data and efficiency. Hopefully, as you've been through our parking decks this last particularly, we have our vendor SCADATA on campus working on our gates. It's been a long process to install our gates, but they're currently configuring all of our LPR cameras in our gated facilities. So what that allows us to do is better monitor occupancy in all of our facilities. So Natasha, this does tie into your question in a roundabout way. We are ultimately concerned about the capacity of our parking decks and creating as many parking opportunities as possible. So the only way we can effectively do that is to have the data necessary to make those calculations. So you may see that we've closed some drive lanes today or this week, or some exits, or the team is out there installing those cameras and configuring those. We stumbled upon a report we didn't think we had last night. So we are able to monitor occupancy now using that LPR data. So our goal for the next couple of months is to really have a strong understanding of what our true occupancy is in our parking decks. That does tie directly into the space studies. We realize that work life has changed and certainly changed our parking structure and use as well. So we are evaluating how our decks are being used on a regular basis.
Couple more questions. We got Sarah, and then we have one in the chat, and then Matt.
Hey, Chris. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. And it's good to, bring you into the fold and get you used to a little bit of frying pan, hopefully not too much. So my question is, appreciate you bringing up this efficiency and space use that we are looking at. So just for background, I'm at the business school. We are expanding because we have more staff than we can hold on our in our school, on our campus. So we are utilizing space in multiple buildings, including like East 54 and just all around. We have found that the hybrid work model works really well because we don't have enough offices for the staff that we have, faculty included. So we're doing some space sharing, which brings me to the parking. There are people who maybe are not on campus every single day, but who have in the system, as I understand it, a dedicated spot, right? Like you pay for, now that we have this new model, we're not paying for partial weeks, we're paying for the whole week. And so how does that work with the efficiency that Clemens was talking about with, using hybrid as a way to enhance what we're able to do as a community, not requiring everybody at all times to be in the same space, knowing that some of those parking spots could probably be utilized by 2 people if we were able to, get the coordination, all the ducks doing all the things. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that's being considered? Obviously, that's a new challenge since hybrid wasn't as much of a thing in the past, but how are we looking at that new challenge and possibility?
Right, that is something we are certainly looking at. And again, once we have our LPR cameras configured correctly, we can monitor that on a regular basis. Just for perspective, at my previous institution down the road where the red ties are at, we used LPR. We installed that back in 2017, and we were able to adjust all of our permit sales based upon the hybrid work schedule. Here, since we're phasing in LPR, we're just a little bit behind where I was down the street. So with that LPR data, we're able to monitor what vehicles are on campus, what the frequency are. Our previous institution, we know what our peaks were. And so there is a delicate balance between the annual permit, the weekly permit, and the daily permit. But I'm quite confident with the team that we have and the technology we're inserting, we should be able to better maximize parking opportunities on campus here for all of our friends. I just need a little bit of time to dial things in.
Data, gotta love it.
Yeah, and then there is a question in the chat from Lisa I see here. I don't believe, and Karsim, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I don't believe there's plans to build any more structured parking. At the point of there are some regulations between us and the town of Chapel Hill on the number of parking spaces we actually are able to manage on our campus and provide for folks. Karsim, anything I missed on that one?
No, you pretty much hit it spot on. Our planning for decks and things like that is strongly tied to the university's master plan. So, you know, when that's updated, that'll be our guiding principle plan for any new decks that may come in. I knew when I first got here, probably about 4 years ago, there were some talks about a new Jackson Deck 2 behind the current Jackson Deck, but what's going on with South Campus development, I don't know. I don't believe that's no longer completely on their books, or it's just a conceptual thought at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Karsim. And then the second, maybe third part of the question was the gate is sometimes up, sometimes down. It's not how the system's supposed to work. So we're tightening that up. Ideally, the gate arms would be down 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're not there yet. There's a couple sound bites I've used in the last couple of weeks. My staff continues to throw back at me. One is that we're slow and methodical with our implementation of phases. So I just don't want things to happen. So we do have a plan in place to eventually bring those gate arms down 24/7. But yes, what we've just learned last night is like a 5:30 phone call, is that regardless of the position that gate arm is in, LPR is still capturing that data. So currently we're gated 7:30 to 5. There are peak parking periods. Eventually you'll see those gate arms stay down a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. Because right now the way we're configured, it's a little embarrassing to admit this out loud. We're using like 4 or 5 different pieces of parking software to run this machine. And so our goal is to streamline it so that we're using not these multiple facets. So the gates don't talk to LPR, LPR doesn't talk to a permit, and so forth and so on. So again, just week 5, but there's plenty of opportunities here to streamline the operation for you, our customers, as well as our staff here in the office. Again, I'm just asking for a little bit of time to make those tweaks and tighten things up.
Making progress already in week 5. I love it. Matthew, and then some questions from Annetta in the chat.
Hi, sort of question, sort of comment, more observation over the last dozen years. In a lot of the parking decks, they're not well equipped to accommodate the significantly larger vehicles as vehicles have grown over time. So between very large trucks and hitches sticking off the back, you know, some of the decks get to barely a car wide sometimes for fitting through there. Have there been any thoughts or discussions about maximum vehicle lengths in, especially like the parking decks where there's not a lot of space to maneuver at the best of times? And it's something that's gotten much tighter over the years. So.
Yeah, Matthew, thank you. That's a great question. That has not come up on the list of priorities our staff has shared with me thus far. Karsim, I'll defer to you on that one again if anything has come up. Matthew, that is an issue industry-wide. You know, the quick response that most of us in the parking industry said, well, we'll just enforce it. You know, we'll create compact parking spaces and large parking spaces. But then we have an enforcement issue that we're dealing with. And is it more efficient for our enforcement officers to enforce permanent enforcement or the size of the vehicle inside the parking space? We also know that people are driving through our decks pretty quickly nowadays and just irregardless of speed. So I think there's some opportunity for education on our folks and how we do park appropriately, and then slowing down as we drive through our decks. We will certainly add that to the list, though. That is a valid safety concern.
Yeah, and Matthew, we haven't had the issue as far as the length of a vehicle, But within our dogwood deck for our patient parking for UNC Hospital, we do have height areas. Or if a vehicle comes in that's a little, may be on some monster truck tires or something like that, we have a designated areas for those vehicles to park when it comes to height, but not necessarily length.
Kasim's comment is a good segue into some of Anetta's questions. Anetta, your first question around Odom Village site, I would encourage you to put that into the VC meeting question process, because I think Nate and his team in finance and operations would be best positioned to answer the question around the space utilization around Odom Village and what that site, the future of that site is. But questions around cardinal parking and patient visitor parking. Yeah, Anetta, did you want to bring that forward? Oh,
I think it's been answered.
Okay,
I
great.
look forward to just getting the glitches out, so to speak, because we do have patients who are trying to get as close to the dental school as possible. So they are going into the staff deck when the gate is open. So.
Yeah, Anita, thanks for bringing that to our attention. That is something we're aware of, and we are working to resolve those issues. We've been out in the field all last week with our vendors in the field, checking the equipment themselves, configurations. Again, our long-term goal is to put those gate arms down in the down position. So we are protecting our assets for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time for one last question from Sarah.
Sorry, this all reminded me. I was speaking to an employee recently who, and I take the bus, so have a lot of conversations around the, yeah, I see. Okay, thank you. Yes. I mean, we do what we have to do sometimes. So with the move to $8, the parking has been made less accessible. And so those of us that need to make other arrangements have done what we needed to do. That has meant a lot more people parking at the Friday Center. And I've been told, though, because I'm take the bus, I don't park there, I don't know. I've been told that the parking situation there is hot mess of, not being clear what direction to drive, people getting stuck, people parking in weird places, it being very far from where the actual bus is stopping now that more of the lot is being used. I know that that's not us. Is there a communication with that team at the Friday Center? Or maybe it is us. I don't know. Sorry, that was a big assumption. But what does communication over there look like, especially since we are utilizing more of their space? Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah, that's a great question. And Karsim has that on his list for me in our weekly one-on-ones. He's been out there and has put eyes on it. So I'm going to defer to Karsim on this one. So I think we've addressed why it may be perceived as a hot mess out there. Karsim, do you want to talk about the shuttle bus timings and your observations?
So when I visited Friday Center North, which is the bigger lot, we do have a situation where we have more of our customers using parking rights, so therefore they're parking in the drive lanes, which is making the lot more difficult to navigate. But the main draw, that's something that we're working on internally with Chapel Hill Transit, a lot of reason why our customers are using that lot is because of the frequency at which the FCX is using that bus. Now, down the street at Friday Center South and the Hedrick building, there's plenty of access for our customers to park. However, the route that serves that lot doesn't come as frequently as the bus that serves Friday Center North. So we're having some internal discussions with ourselves to say, hey, maybe we need to reach out to Chapel Hill Transit to see if we can increase the frequency to both lots. That way it would ease the burden on the Friday Center North lot. So that's definitely on our list, and we have noticed that as well. But thanks for bringing that up to us.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we've reached time, but I hope that that wasn't too much of a hot seat for your first meeting with us, Dobek. But we're so glad to have you here and looking forward to working with you and your team moving forward. And I look forward to hearing about ACT and how we're going to move forward with that. So with that, thank you to you and to Karsim as always. Love to see you in our meetings as always. So thanks,
Very good.
Doug.
Thanks, friends. Call if you need us.
Sounds great. All right. With that, we are moving to our next portion of our agenda, which is our trustee human resources updates. I see Becci is on the call today. Good to see you, Becci.
Good morning, everyone. Happy November. It's hard to believe. Many of us in higher education say that October and April are the two busiest months in the higher education calendar. And if your October was anything like mine, that proved to be true. It seemed like a 840-day long month, but I congratulate you all on having successfully made it through. I don't have a big update today. A reminder, if you haven't done so, to exercise your civic responsibility to vote. I know we talked a little bit about some of the resources available for students. Obviously, we want to make sure people feel comfortable in the workplace. There are not plans, at least as I know, for a Serenity room, though I encourage you to make your offices and your departments as serene as possible, and encourage you to leverage leave should you need to use it. We also a reminder, the holiday calendars are published. They have been published for some time. As you begin planning, once we hit the November, the rollover to November, I think all of us start sort of thinking through how long we have to make it to get to various target dates for additional time off. As we've discussed before, and sort of in line with the conversation we had earlier, the benefit of a longer term winter break. Of course, anybody who can do work on those voluntary days and wishes to work with their supervisor's approval can in fact do that. But the advantage for those of you who choose to take those days is, unlike taking an individual vacation where you come back to a whole lot of email, the idea behind that longer break is to have everybody be off and be able to come back indeed a little bit more refreshed and relaxed. And we'll hope you take the opportunity to do that. In the last several meetings, we've been reporting on open enrollment. We have completed open enrollment. I'm pleased to say that 96.3% of our employees responded to the 7,322 messages that they got and completed their open enrollment. There were about 520 employees who did not. Our benefits team, Joe and his team, stand at the ready to help those who may have good reason to file an appeal. I will tell you, those are very rarely successful. So those folks who did not respond to the messages, and I will tell you, we did a lot of individual outreach. Those of you who were at Employee Appreciation Day saw folks in costume. Several of us were sending personalized messages to folks that we knew hadn't yet completed. HR officers were involved. The benefits team was involved. Some of you were involved. We did a lot to remind people, in addition, and not just via email, postcards and others. But we're pleased that we hit the number that we did, and we'll certainly hope that we can continue to see those numbers rise moving forward. It was great to see many of you out there for Employee Appreciation Day. I'd like to ask Shayna to post her video live of her experience on the bucking bronco. I think that was a highlight for me of the Employee Appreciation Day experience. I don't know whether others of you got on to the bucking bronco. I will tell you, I was not successful in getting the Chancellor on the bucking bronco, though he did enjoy the opportunity to interact with a number of you throughout the course of the fair and in line for lunch, as did I. And I hope you all had the opportunity to enjoy some employee crafted gifts. Both the gift bag this year was designed by an employee, and the volunteer t-shirts, which incidentally featured yours truly. I offered to sign them for if you had a volunteer t-shirt, to sign them for $5 a signature to support my own not my own employee well-being fund, to support scholarships, of course, yes. But I didn't get a lot of takers in autographs, but nonetheless, really want to thank those employees who contributed art and designs for the Employee Appreciation both bag and t-shirt this year. Beyond that, I'm not going to go through a lot of things. We don't have a lot of legislative updates. You heard the Board of Trustees is in next week. One of the things that I did want to mention, many of you on this group were involved in several of the efforts we made to improve employee hiring or staff hiring. As many of you know, we are going through or completing an exercise to improve faculty hiring. This is another example where staff led the way and the faculty saw the benefit, and now we're following through to make sure that we can improve the times and processes for faculty hiring. And we'll be rolling out some additional updates related to that in the coming weeks. And then again in January, there's 2 rounds of that. I'm not keeping up with comments, so I'll just stop there. I know we've got Jessica and crew here to answer further questions and to provide the wellness updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Sarah, you have a question.
I do, but my brain just lost it. Sorry. I will put my hand back up when I get it again.
There.
No worries. I actually did have a question. I received an email inquiring about staff financial resources around employees who may have been personally affected by the Hurricane Helene and the impacts. I know we've got a lot of employees who work remotely, so there might be employees that work out in the western part of our state who are impacted. I know some of our sister institutions in the western part of the state have made faculty and staff funds available for application, and it's similar to how student funds have been made available for impacted students to apply for. And I just was curious if we had any leads or any thoughts around making such funds available here at UNC-Chapel Hill for impacted employees.
I don't know that we've made broader funds available. We have looked at and sent several communications related to extended benefits and extended offerings. Linc, I don't know. We have been trying to track who we know is impacted and be able to make sure we're being responsive. I don't know whether we've received requests in order to be able to do that, nor do I know that we have a funding source. But Linc, you may have more comments on that and want to chime in.
Actually, I don't, other than the extended provisions, leave provisions and things that the state has been doing for all state employees. We've sent information out to HR officers about that. But in terms of a funding source or some funds being available for the way that you're describing it, Katie, I'm not aware of anything at the moment.
And just that way, I mean, I got this request from Lynn, who got it from someone else. So there are staff who are asking about this, and so I brought it forward. But I'll let her know. And I did know about the additional leave provision, so I'll forward her that information. But just know that those questions are starting to percolate around staff needing assistance to deal with personal situations impacted by the tragedy.
Perfect.
Do we have funds for students available? I know that there's been impacted students who live in the western part of our state.
That is not my strong suit, but I do believe the Dean of Students Office is accepting things through the care team. And then I don't know whether it's financial requests, but requests through the care team. And then I'm guessing the Student Emergency Fund may be a source for that. But please don't quote me on that. That's a little bit out of my lane, and I don't want to overstate.
I think you're right.
Of someone else.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Sarah, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you. I remembered. So I recently was in touch with an employee who was requesting FMLA and learned that that process requires a signed note from a medical personnel, doctor, surgeon, something, practitioner of some sort. But now these doctors are charging for that. And I just wanted to bring forward that if someone is requesting FMLA, they are clearly already like experiencing an overburdened life in some way. And so adding not just the act of needing to fill out more paperwork, but then additionally to pay money. And I know like we cannot control that, but I did want to bring up that maybe it would be beneficial if we looked at alternatives to requiring this, whatever paperwork it is that we require at this moment, because that is an additional unnecessary burden that I do feel like we could find a creative solution to replace with something else. So just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if that's already being talked about. I think early days, offices were not charging for that because it wasn't as frequent, but the person that I spoke to had to pay $25 per letter. And that seems like a lot in addition to like the emotional burden and the frustration and all of this. So.
And to just jump in there with Sarah, I will just mention that, just confirm that from personal conversation with my therapist, that there was going to be a per 15-minute charge to complete the paperwork. And that is not covered by my copay. That is not covered. I'm not even sure, honestly, I haven't done the investigation to find out if that's even something I can use my flex card for. So yeah, it is definitely an expense.
Yeah, no, I totally understand the issue. Unfortunately, the provision of FMLA is a federally regulated program, and because there's a series of reporting requirements associated with it, and things that we are obligated to do, we don't get to change the rules. But your point is well taken, and one that we certainly need to understand a little bit more. And I'm happy to take that back and talk to the team a bit more about. I don't think we can just say, though, we're going to waive letters. That's just not part of the way the structure works.
Is that something that is covered by Flex or can be?
I'm not sure. I'm happy to ask the question. Yeah,
that'd be great to know.
Yep.
Other questions for Becci and Linc? You had it easy today.
I did.
People got it out of their systems with parking here. No.
Becci, I just wanted to say that Kelly Hare's video is much better than mine. And I'm happy to submit it.
I need to see yours. I've seen Kelly's video. I've not seen yours, Shayna, and I feel like you've been hiding it from me. So tisk.
I gotta say, I mean, y'all who did that, outstanding. It was very entertaining, and I hope it was as fun as it looks. And I fully expect we're gonna need to reprise that next time around.
It really was a blast.
Good.
And high praise for the nacho bar. I appreciate that feedback being taken into consideration. It was a hit.
Awesome. And if you all run into Shireen Jenkins at all, she pretty much independently plans the Employee Appreciation Day. She certainly leverages the help of a handful of others, but does a lot of that on her own. So if you get a chance to see her, please thank her directly. And trick-or-treaters, unfortunately, I live on the last block of one of the biggest trick-or-treating spots in Durham. And I, as you all know, love Halloween. But my block does not have sidewalk. And so they place a policeman at the end of our block. And last night, the counts appeared to be 1,600 to 1,700 trick-or-treaters on every house a block away from me. But our block was dark. So I enjoyed looking at some great costumes from afar. And I contributed some candy to some of the neighbors, because 1,600 trick-or-treaters for some requires a second mortgage. And but I was able to be quiet last night. But I'm looking forward to some leftover candy in the break room this morning, because I didn't have any at my house. So
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for all that you do, and happy November to you. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Becci. All right. Got Jessica on the call, I believe, for our wellness updates. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Katie. Hi, everyone. Wow, that is an amazing number of trick-or-treaters that Becci did not get. We were overexcited. I moved into a new townhouse in the spring. We thought maybe we'd have some trick-or-treaters. We had one. So I also have some candy to contribute to the office for people. But it's amazing that it's already in November. So with that, the holidays are approaching, and this time of year, November, December, we hold an annual healthy cooking demo. So we're bringing that back again. It's a little bit earlier this year. It is going to be November 20th. We're going to stick to the 11:30 start time to give our chef a little bit more time to work through that demo. But our focus this year is going to be a little different. It's on vegetarian and vegan cooking. So if you are a vegetarian or a vegan, this one might appeal to you. If you have an interest in eating plant-based diet, also you may find this topic a little interesting. But these cooking demos are held by Carolina Dining Services. We have again with us Senior Executive Chef Geis and dietitian Lee July, who will be joining to provide that nutrition information about the various recipes and also talk and give more information about eating a plant-based diet. So the recipes this go round are apricot, cranberry, and dried kiwi wheat berry salad, English style sausage roll with grainy mustard dipping sauce, green beans with fennel, shallots, and tarragon, and a holiday spiced banana, apple, and oatmeal cookies. So if you're lucky to grab a seat, registration opens today, and it will be promoted in the newsletter. I can also drop that link in the chat when I'm done speaking here. You will get a full lunch following that cooking demo. And if not, we do live stream the cooking demo out to our people working from home or people who just aren't able to come in person. But the event's held in the Student Union, and we're going to be upstairs this year in a different location in room 3206. So not the same location we've been over the past couple of years. And then speaking of November, this month we're supposed to get colder weather at some point. I'm not sure when that will be happening, but we're featuring a slow cooker chicken and vegetable soup in the newsletter coming out later today. For our Wellness Wednesdays coming up over the next 4 weeks, we're starting up November next week with a session, a brand new session titled Bedtime Routines for Adults. As getting a quality night's sleep is challenging for some of us, or establishing that routine. And just a reminder that this weekend is the weekend to turn your clocks back. So establishing that bedtime routine might be on the top of your minds next week. On the 13th, we have one on feeling stuck, practical ways to get yourself going again. On the 20th, we'll be live streaming that cooking demo from the Student Union. And on December 4th, before I see you all again, there will be a session on 10 strategies to improve your finances, because November, December can be some months that we do a little bit extra spending. Speaking of which, in the holidays approaching, Campus Rec will be having its annual Jingle Bell Jog on December 6th. So I believe that's falling right after this meeting next month, Friday, December 6th, 12:15. I know a lot of you come out and enjoy this employee event. I love it. I love seeing all the costumes. Whether you're in a costume or not, you're invited to come out and participate in the 1.5 mile walk, or if you're up to it, the 2.7 mile run. There's also an opportunity to give back to the community by bringing non-perishable food items to the event for the Carolina Cupboard, or a pet item, food, toys, blankets, etc. for the Orange County Animal Shelter. There's always great refreshments afterwards, and I was told it's a rain, shine, or snow event, yet I just can't imagine snow happening this year, but we'll see. So that's coming up. Lots of fun things in November and December. And as far as your discounts this year or this month, we are promoting the discount employees get on Legal Shield. If you want to sign up for that, you can save $17 a month on the family plan and a smaller amount for individual plans. And then Black Friday and Cyber Monday savings coming up later this month on Working Advantage, which includes large discounts off of Lenovo computers, Whirlpool appliances, Samsung TVs, and many, many more. So that's through your Working Advantage employee discount program. And that's all I have for today. So let me know if you have any questions.
Questions for Jessica? Link's over here breaking Keith's heart in the chat. Sad stories.
So good seeing everyone.
Good to see you too, Jessica. And as always, if you'll share those updates with me, I'll get those out to delegates after the meeting.
Will do, Katie.
Awesome. All right, folks, well, we're moving right along. So next up on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the October meeting minutes, which Matt sent around separately. Hopefully you all have had a chance to review those. The consent agenda this time does include committee reports, but I'm given the opportunity now for committees to pull their reports for discussion separate from consent agenda. Does any of the committee chairs want to share live updates during the meeting about committee business?
Katie, I have a brief update for staff assembly.
Okay, pulling staff assembly. Sarah?
DEI committee would also like to make a statement.
Excellent. DEI committee.
Hey, Katie, it's Renata. I have updates for the blood drive.
Okay, blood drive. And I think we have a community service update, so I'll pull that as well. Anybody else? Okay.
Sorry, Katie, I should pull out leadership, education, and career development.
Will do. All right, folks. Well, with those,
can I pull out membership?
yep. With all of those committees pulled, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Arlene seconds.
Okay, Annetta moved to approve, Arlene seconds. All right. We'll do this by acclamation. Are there any opposed to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes. And we'll move into those committee updates. Community service, Allie is attending a Hurricane Helene disaster relief meeting at the moment, so she's not on the call right this second. But she did pass along that, let me see, the food drive has started. I don't know a lot of details on that, but she will send more updates later, so be on the lookout for that. Yeah. And then blood drive, Renata.
Hi, everyone. So we are a little over a month out from the blood drive. So hopefully I'll get to see you guys all on December 11th. We will be sending out our notice to the entire UNC community that the blood drive is happening, and everyone will be able to sign up for appointments on November the 11th. So be looking out for that. And with the exception of parking, we are good on every front.
Awesome. And we do have a meeting scheduled with parking to try and resolve some of that, which is good. I'm going to skip over DEI because I think we have a substantive discussion coming there under new business. We'll come to y'all last on committee updates. So leadership, education, and career development, Ellie.
So professional development grants will open Monday, new application cycle. So if you want to apply or know people who would like to apply, please keep an eye out for that notification, forward it on, spread the love. And if you have any interest in reviewing applications in before Thanksgiving, and then with a little bit of pad on the other side of Thanksgiving, send me an email, send Siobhan an email. And then I'll also be sending out a email to ask for folks. But if you feel so inclined to, you can always reach out. But that's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Keith, membership and engagement.
Yes, good morning. So on behalf of Tiffany, who's not here, and myself, we're going to send out an email and we're going to be asking that committee chairs and leads, please send us an attendance report through October of the meetings you have had. Hopefully we'll get that email out to you all next week. I really hope, because I hope that you all have been keeping some kind of attendance so that we can assess participation and people actually meeting the calls. Calls is not the word. Meeting the expectations that were set forth when becoming a part of the forum. If you have any questions, let me know. Look for that email next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. Thanks, Tiff. Next up, we've got staff assembly. Shayna.
Hi, everyone. This will, as promised, this will be brief. Staff Assembly full body meeting is meeting next Thursday and Friday. These are open meetings, so if you would like to attend via Zoom, please reach out to Katie or me, and we will send you the Zoom information. I encourage folks to attend if you can. Thanks.
Shayna, I'll work with Matt Horvat to get because I think they're required to register now. So I'll try and get that information from him and include it in my post-meeting email so folks can register to attend via Zoom if they would like to participate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie.
Looking forward to that. And we're getting ready to go to School of the Arts, which Shayna and I know we got a private tour, is super cool. So we're excited about staff assembly being there this time and getting to see a performance.
I was there.
Oh yeah, you were too. Keith was there too. UNC-Chapel Hill was special and got a private behind the scenes tour. But yeah, so looking forward to exploring their campus again and seeing our colleagues across the system. Awesome. Okay. With that said, DEI committee has the floor, but before I get to that, we're gonna spend the last several minutes with DEI committee who has a proposed resolution to bring forward. But before we get to that, just the announcements and questions so that we can kind of adjourn after the DEI conversation. We've got a staff assembly staff advisory committee to the Chancellor, so STAC meeting coming up November 5th. So STAC members should have received the invite for that. It is on November 5th from 9 to 10 in 105 South, or there's a Zoom option if you need it. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a Vice Chancellor's representatives meeting coming up November 14th. Matt sent around the Qualtrics for that. So if you'd like to submit questions and participate in that VC reps meeting, please respond to that Qualtrics. So yeah, with that said, we're going to move into DEI's conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah ×2 plus Natasha, I believe. So I'm going to turn it to y'all. Go ahead.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so this is a resolution that we're proposing. It needs to go through 2 meetings. So the DEI committee will be voting on this as a separate body next week at our meeting, but we did want to bring it up here for you all to read through, to consider, to add to, and next meeting to vote on. So Sarah is going to read through, maybe give some background. And yeah, there were many hands moving this on, but yeah, thank you all for considering it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, this could be very confusing. There are 2 Sarahs on the DEI committee. Sarah Green is the co-chair. I am Sarah Smith. I'm just a member of the DEI committee, but do appreciate the time. And I'm the one who kind of brought this forward, and I'm happy to give some context. So bear with me for a few moments. And as Sarah Green mentioned, there were lots of folks moving parts on this, and I will definitely take some time to thank folks at the end. So I'm going to give you some context, and then we're going to share kind of the draft of the resolution as it currently stands. So as I mentioned, I'm Sarah Smith. In my role outside of the forum, I serve as Assistant Director of Civic Engagement at the UNC-Y. We are located in the Campus Y building, kind of over on main campus. For those of us who are, I know we're all spread all over UNC's campus, so I'm over kind of across from the Old Well next to South Building. I serve as an advisor for the Campus Y student organization. And one of our committees is the Disability Advocates Committee. The shorthand for that is DAC. So you may have heard that referenced earlier. Natasha brought up a question to the provost referencing October 7th, the week of October 7th. And I think he maybe referenced what we're referencing as safety measures or security measures. I think he referred to it as something different, but measures that were taken during the week of October 7th around kind of access to buildings. And kind of from my perspective as being in a building that was affected, the inaccessibility of buildings during the week of October 7th. So as I mentioned, I am an advisor for DAC, again, Disability Advocates Committee. And a lot of the students I work with are wheelchair users, but the students within that space have a wide range of disabilities, including but not limited to PTSD. We have folks who use service animals, you know, a wide range of abilities within that space. Our building is also used by community members. We have a coffee shop. As Katie knows, we have a faculty lounge. Lots of different folks come and use the space. So, you know, it is used by lots of different people. So during the week of October 7th, all buildings touching Polk Place were put on one card access only for the entire week. So as I think the provost kind of mentioned in his response to Natasha's question, no notice was given aside from an email that was sent the night earlier, like so Sunday evening around 8 p.m. An email was sent to students and faculty only of the impacted buildings around 8 p.m. That was intentional, clearly. Staff were left off of all communication. I was under the impression that was maybe an accident. Apparently that was intentional, according to the remarks that we just heard. Again, not clear as to why, but that was intentional. We weren't given a chance to troubleshoot or prepare a plan to best support our students or staff who access our building to plan accordingly. As the day progressed, I began to realize that that meant a lot as far as access to our building. We have a coffee shop. Our line frequently goes out the building. Our accessibility button was turned off. And that meant a lot of challenges for us. Again, I'm kind of speaking in I statements here, but I began to start to see the impact around as well. Any student, staff, or faculty in need of assistance to enter or exit a building was basically stuck until they could wait for someone to open a building, or if they needed to exit a building, they had to wait until someone could come and help them. We have video documentation of students being kind of stuck in spaces until someone could come and help them leave a building. Because again, all the accessible buttons were turned off. We have, even with the one card, when you tap it, you could hear the button trying to work, but the click was happening and no doors were opening. We have a student who shared an experience where their service animal, police officers were like clicking at it and trying to play with the service dog while it was working. And so the dog could not guide. I also have a few students who shared with me due to a PTSD diagnosis, they were unable to attend class that week with the increased police presence on campus. I found this to be really sad, quite frankly, and really hard to listen to. You know, these experiences were reported early in the week to EOC, Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, and the Provost. Nothing was done by the end of the week. No changes were made. No, I'm sorry this happened. Let's work with you. And that was really upsetting to me personally. And I really felt like this is something that we should take some action on and make a statement about. And so, you know, we as the DEI committee have made statements before. In fact, in May of 2023, we made a proclamation kind of addressing concerns around I think deferred maintenance was a big concern. I'll be honest, I think it continues to be a concern. And so I'm happy to share the proclamation. It is on our website, but if folks want to have a quick glance at that, folks maybe who are newer to the forum, this is a proclamation that we did in May of 2023, just around concerns of, you know, folks not being able to access classes, folks being stuck in dorm rooms, with deferred maintenance around elevators. And then I also wanted to raise concerns earlier this month. Actually, I guess it's now November. Last month, there were concerns raised around emergency management planning after the tornado warnings. So this was again prior to the October 7 week. Just to kind of say there was already issues with our emergency protocol planning. Okay, and that leads us into October 7. And so the DEI committee, special thanks to Sarah Green, the whole DEI committee for giving their perspectives, Katie, Matt, and Jacob, as always. We have drafted a resolution that would love to go ahead and do a first reading of and get some perspectives. Again, we'll be bringing this back to the December meeting to vote on. But wanted to go ahead and get the ball rolling because this is such an important issue, in my opinion, that we need to act quickly. So, Katie, I'm looking
gonna
to you.
interrupt real quick.
Yes, go ahead, Sarah.
And second the shout outs and include Anetta because Anetta
Yes.
pitch hit last minute, got so many great additions to this document. I do want to just make sure that it is super clear for everyone. A proclamation happened last year, which is like an announcement, a notice, a statement. This is a resolution. So we are asking for action this time. And I do want to make that clear because, as Sarah mentioned, this is an ongoing issue that we've seen and experienced. We have staff in these buildings that, as we heard a little disappointingly, were intentionally excluded and unconsidered their safety and access for a what Clemens called an operational need. So we would also love input, right? We have a limited scope of people that we've heard from, people who are affected, but we know that this goes farther than just this Polk Place area and also farther than just the people that we've heard from. So if in addition to this resolution, you all would like, anybody would like to contact us or have us connect with individuals at your schools or departments, please let us know. We think it's really important to have many voices on this. So just want to bring that up. Like, this is version 1, right? And we would love more like meatiness to this, more input. So definitely, please don't feel like voting for or against this is the only action you can take as forum delegates. We really do want you all socializing this within your communities and then bringing back more input on whether or not we have hit all the things, missed something big, or if a whole separate thing needs to be brought forward as well. Okay, thank you.
And before you share your screen, Sarah, I need Jacob. Is Jacob on the call? Is your trusty parliamentarian on the call? Yes.
Yeah,
awesome. Can you remind me the correct order of the motion? Did they need to move that we consider this on first reading and then we take a vote on the motion and then we share the screen? Is that what happens?
No, honestly, at this point, considering this is just a main motion, they make a motion for the body to consider it, and then we go into the first reading, at which point we open the floor up for debate.
Yeah. Okay, so motion is made, we vote on the motion, we share the screen, we do the first reading, we open for debate. Cool. With that said, do I hear a motion?
I move. This is Liz. Thanks.
You move to blank?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I can't be on audio a lot right now. I so move.
And I'm going to fill in the blank, and correct me if I'm saying this, to consider potential resolution 24-04 concerning accessibility concerns. Okay. Do I have a second?
This is Arlene. I second.
Okay. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, the motion carries. Sarah, you are free to share your screen and do the first reading of potential resolution 24-04.
Can you all see that? Is that
Yes.
showing up on your end? Great. All right, I might try to make it a little bigger. Here we go. All right. Resolution 2404, UNC-Chapel Hill Employee Forum Resolution regarding inaccessible emergency and safety planning. Whereas the Employee Forum at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, UNC-Chapel Hill, or University, was created to advocate for and constructively address the challenges, needs, and opportunities of UNC-Chapel Hill employees and seek to continually improve the quality of life at UNC-Chapel Hill for its staff, students, and faculty. And whereas the UNC-Chapel Hill Employee Forum is in a unique position to learn about, often through direct experience, both unique and widespread challenges staff and Carolina community members face, and are well positioned to bring these issues to leadership. And whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, as amended states, no qualified individual with a disability shall, by reason of such disability, be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of the services, programs, or activities of a public entity, which includes UNC-Chapel Hill, or be subjected to discrimination by any such entity. And whereas Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as amended, also states, no otherwise qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely be reason of her or his disability be excluded from the participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And whereas the U.S. Department of Education's regulations implementing Section 504 state, no qualified handicapped student shall, on the basis of handicap, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or otherwise be subjected to discrimination under any academic, research, occupational training, housing, health insurance, counseling, financial aid, physical education, athletics, recreation, transportation, other extracurricular or other post-secondary education aid, benefits, or services to which this subpart applies. And whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, is a federal mandate which states that employees with disabilities should not experience barriers to get accommodations, as failure to provide accommodations and unnecessary delays can result in a violation of the ADA. And whereas numerous media articles have highlighted the severe and ongoing concerns about accessibility on campus, and whereas UNC-Chapel Hill's EOC received blank number of disability and access-related reports since August 2023, and whereas the university's documented failure to meet the accessibility needs of the campus community dramatically impacts the safety and well-being of said members at all levels and prevents those individuals from living, working, and learning at the university with the same level of ease as their peers. And whereas the university's documented failure to meet the accessibility needs of the campus community places the university at risk of financial, legal, life, safety, operational, and reputational harm. And whereas the UNC Systems 2022 through 2027 strategic plan states, the UNC Systems constituent institutions collectively comprise an inclusive and vibrant system that is committed to excellence in the development of a diverse community of staff, students, and faculty, including people of diverse abilities. And whereas the UNC Chapel Hill Strategic Plan, Initiative Number 1, Build Our Community Together, states the extraordinary events that we witnessed during the COVID-19 pandemic and the disturbing images and reports of racial and social injustices have brought to the forefront the fundamental challenges in our day-to-day life in the form of real and urgent concerns about accessibility, race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, culture, health inequities, and political orientation. Carolina is committed to creating and sustaining a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community of students, faculty, and staff. Our differences are our strength. And whereas a preeminent institution of higher learning and the flagship of the University of North Carolina system, UNC-Chapel Hill should be actively leading the charge to weave a rich tapestry of personal lived experiences and abilities. And whereas The increased security measures of the past few months have shown a lack of consideration to our staff, faculty, and students with disabilities and their rights to access their offices, classrooms, and dormitories and study spaces, even after requests have been made. And whereas the employee forum recognizes the ongoing accessibility challenges are complex and will require work to solve, and stand ready to support university leadership and other stakeholders with developing and implementing practical solutions. And therefore be it resolved that the employee forum calls on the Chancellor and his cabinet to 1, prioritize accessibility related maintenance requests and completing said maintenance in a timely manner. 2, develop an agile and robust process for receiving student and employee accessibility concerns and adding those to the existing maintenance list. 3, treat staff as partners and facilitators in smooth operation of the Chapel Hill campus. 4, include staff as equal stakeholders to faculty in all communications sent out about changes to campus operations and security measures. 5, recommend at the time of any proposed security response changes that the UNC Police Department, Campus Safety, and Office of Emergency Management and Planning work with designated liaison from the Office of Equal Opportunity and Compliance to create a written plan which takes accessibility into account specifically. Areas in need of review include, but are not limited to, training for UNC police responders and other frontline responders on how to interact with persons with disabilities and their support animals, reallocating funding from armed police toward others who are already trained in mental health first responding, e.g. team of trained mental health crisis workers or other crisis intervention team, installing working one-card access readers at all entryways with ramps and handicap door opener buttons, ensuring the handicap door opener buttons are in working order at all times for entry and exit, designate a liaison from the Office of Equal Opportunity and Compliance to review all current security measure accessibility plans, and number 7, uphold and comply with the ADA as required by law, ideally exceeding expectations for our community members.
Great job, Sarah.
Well,
With this time, we will open up for debate and discussion around potential resolution 24-04. Feel free to add comments in the chat, raise your hand, unmute yourself.
I have a question for Sarah with regards to the student that's the officers were trying to distract the dog.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that student comfortable with sending in like information anonymously through our website if they have a complaint?
So yeah, they are, I think, willing to send a formal complaint. So they basically have lodged this complaint with, we have a, like a way they can do it through the Disability Advocates Committee. So if y'all have a formal way through, thank you so much. I was gonna say through the police, like format, so we can put it through there. And if we're like, if that's the best way to do it through your system, happy to send them that direction as well.
Yeah, she can do it either way.
Okay.
I guess, and then as far as the proclamation, I guess I do have an issue with the reallocating. I can't see it. Can you scroll down again?
Sure thing. 1 second. Sorry, I have too many tabs open. Where's my? Let me find the right tab. You're looking at number, or I think it's B. The reallocating funding from the armed police officers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying we use our own money. We don't
Okay.
get it. So I guess I just don't really agree with that one.
Okay.
That's my input.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate your perspective for sure. Rebecca.
Sure. My only thought initially was, and this just might be my brain is not functioning. This is for a proclamation, correct? Not a resolution?
It's a resolution.
Resolution. Okay, got it. Just want to make sure that my brain was thinking. Obviously not correctly, but gotcha.
And the resolution, for those who are not familiar, calls for action. And this last part around the be it therefore resolved calls for action from the administration, hence escalating from a proclamation, which is just a statement, to a resolution. And to clarify for those who are not aware, all of the feedback taken here during the meeting, during the GEI committee meeting, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, on Monday the 4th, all of the feedback considered between now and December will be taken into consideration. Amendments to this will be made, and then we'll come back in December for a second reading. So again, floor is open for continued feedback, questions, discussion around the current draft. Kaylee, you have a question in the chat. Will we have an opportunity to read and review this on our own? It's hard for me to really comprehend what it says and means in this format. Yes. I will send in my post-meeting email the draft document to the full body for y'all to kind of peruse. You can add comments, you can add things we'll have track changes on, so folks can kind of contribute that and kind of consider it. Since we didn't have this on the agenda beforehand, you'll have time to consider it separately. And as I can't remember which Sarah it was, socializing this with your constituencies, getting feedback and bringing that back as delegates to speak to this process.
I saw Annetta's hand before Amy's, but we do see yours in the chat. Happy to chat about that in a minute, but Annetta.
So Amy and I have the same question. So I feel like this particular request needs more discussion and clarity.
Love it. So we are part of, so Sarah, could you scroll down to the 5B? So we're asking for, that's perfect, for these specific, so it says in need of review, but are not limited to these security changes that we are suggesting. Increasing training, especially on how to interact with people and their support animals, and then reallocating funds. And this is coming from, so the increase in surveillance, especially around Polk Place in general. So increased police activity, increased cameras, heightened just general security. Our ask is that some of the funding that has already been allocated in that direction is reconsidered and used still towards safety, but mental health safety. So teams who are trained in crisis work, crisis intervention teams, similar to what the Carver Police Department has, is not asking for less security or police presence, but a different form of. And happy to like rework it and reword it. Also, I've already made myself a note to connect to Taisha of what did she mean by we use our own money. So just, this is also based on like our limited understanding of where these funds come from and what they are used for. But we do know that last year it was named that as the DEI committees, councils, and teams were dissolved, that money was intended to go towards more police funding. We know that the Board of Trustees made that ask and was denied. But this is still kind of in keeping with that. We understand that there is a belief that more police will keep us more safe. And what we are asking for is rather than armed police, and that was a very intentional inclusion too, we would like less armament and more mental health and preventative care.
Thank you for the clarity. So I do feel like this needs some more work and clarity. I feel like it probably should read that there be funding allocated to provide mental health first responders rather than moving money from UNC police to support either the training of or make available mental health first responders. So it is not a replacement, but an expansion. Okay, if that makes sense. But I also feel like it needs to be, there needs to be further discussion and getting more information. I think you said, Ms. Williams, you would be speaking to Ms. Williams about that, but to request a reallocation requires a little more discussion. So I would recommend that when we're ready to move this resolution forward, that we just ask for money, not ask for somebody to take money from another source, another budget line or operation to fund mental health first responders. Just ask for the money and ask for that support to be available on site versus pulling money from some other resource. So, but I also feel like this needs more clarity so that we're clear on our message. And I think there's some, I feel like there's some, for lack of a better word, there's some views behind this item B that need to come to the forefront to make sure that this forum has buy-in on that view, because that's a pretty heavy item when we talk about reallocating funding from the police or from campus safety. So that's a whole nother message. I feel like the forum has to be clear on, is that something we're wanting to message, or are we only wanting to ask that somebody, the university, provide funding for more mental health first responders? Because there's a message behind there, and there's also an ask, and they're conflicting right now. So thank you.
Great feedback. Thanks, Annette. And there was some feedback in the chat around the same lines around adding language around training for police and de-escalation techniques, and some back and forth there around kind of Annetta's suggestion to reword and add some language there. Natasha, your hand's up.
I'm great. I'm on the DEI committee too, and so I've been adding a couple comments into the document as we've been talking. But one thing I also wanted to bring up that I think I pulled from the question that I asked the provost and his response as well was, I think he indicated that part of the procedures that were implemented for the week of October 7th was in response to anticipated action on campus that would, I believe he said, quote, interrupt operations. And so I think obviously that part is the intention there, and the overarching result that I believe the DEI community is attempting to address is, in this anticipation or assumption of a disruption, students with disabilities were harmed, frankly, were harmed during that week by not being able to access class. And so I think that obviously this is really multifaceted in terms of what I think we're trying to address here. But I think the thing that I'm thinking in the back of my head around this contrast between policing and mental health advocacy, I wonder if those are two separate things. And so I wonder if maybe it would make more sense, and just based on some of the feedback that I'm hearing in here too, I wonder if it would make more sense for us to be more specific in the resolution around specifically the actions of police officers that inadvertently caused some students with disabilities to not be able to access their classes that week. And so I'm just feeling like, and obviously I think there's the aspect of, you know, students that might have diagnosed PTSD around police presence. I have met students with those, you know, kinds of mental health things that need to get addressed. And I wonder if maybe we're trying to address two things that are somewhat related, but not clearly related through the rest of the resolution here.
Keith.
Okay, I'm hearing all of this, but my question is, because it was said that these students were harmed, not saying they were not, through the actions of, inadvertently harmed through the actions of police officers. Okay, my question is, I think this, or, okay, I don't know that it was the police officers. I mean, were they carrying out the duties assigned to them by administration is sort of what I'm saying. I don't want to make it individually about the police officers. Oh, the police officers did this, when it may have been administration told police officers to do this. And in that case, we have all been in situations, our supervisor said, go do this. So we went and did this. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I don't want us to make it sound like, oh, it was the police officers. The police officers did this. They were doing this. They chose to do this when they were told, hey, we're locking down these buildings. Hey, we're limiting access to just these people. That's not on the officers that went and locked the building. That's not. That was a directive given to them. If I'm making any sense with this, because I feel this starting to take a little bit of a turn into a direction that I really don't want to see it to go, to where we are sitting here signing our names to something and making it sound like we are blaming police officers for these problems.
I appreciate that, Keith. And I don't know if there's a way to find out what the directives were, but definitely agree that the goal of this is not to like call out individuals. This is trying to look at a system of lack and oversight and all of this. So really appreciate that comment. I was going to add something. Oh, Natasha in the chat was also saying broaden it to security. And I think that that's another important thing. Maybe we are being too specific. I also heard last week from some specific students who said that they were followed to their classroom door from Polk Place by a UNC police officer. Now these students, like this is a secondhand story. I wouldn't even know what the outfit differences are of who's got badges, who's got colors, who's wearing what where. I don't know. So I do think that changing the language from police to security would help get the point across that it is not an anti-police statement we're making. We are making a statement around safety, harm, and this is not just about students. That lack of access to buildings, both in and out. Right, students were locked inside of buildings during the week of October 7th, which is super unsafe. All of these things are really what the focus of this is. So again, shout out Keith, thank you for refocusing us on that. It is possible that we tabled that just 5B and pull out a better way to state this. I appreciate y'all in both leaving comments on the document also. The chat is great, but making sure that we have these going forward to look at, to think about, and to talk about is awesome.
And I'm asking Matt to save the chat so that we can get some of this feedback to you.
Perfect.
So like the conversation is not lost. Want to make sure that all of the feedback gets to y'all. So.
And Sarah, Sarah Green, feel free to reach out to me because I think there's a lot of miscommunication or just not understanding of things. And I also would love to know more about the disability. Like there's a way probably that we can work with making sure that those disability buttons are still in place. I know per policy, everybody's supposed to have their one card to get in. And I can understand why they waited till the last minute to tell people, but I didn't know that staff was not included in that communication because that did not come from us at the police department. But I'm assuming the buttons, I guess, were turned off so people couldn't tailgate, but I think that there is miscommunication on their level that those are needed for people to be able to access these buildings. So it just seems like there needs to be more of a communication and understanding from their side and from the student side.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Taisha. And that is in this, Sarah, if you scroll up, maybe, is it up? One of the resolutions that we're asking for is, there it is. So 3, 4 are including people into those conversations when these changes happen for exactly this reason, right? We're not going to fix what happened, but how can we make sure that going forward, somebody is in the room who is knowledgeable about this, who has understanding? Do we have all of the people in the room, or are we limiting it because of time or energy, whatever? So yes, thank you for that call out. And I'll definitely reach out to you.
Yeah.
I see more hands, sorry.
Oh yeah. I was just going to add something really quick, and then we definitely want to get to these questions. Taisha, I can't thank you enough for like adding some layers and context to this, because we do appreciate you. And I don't want this to at all come across as like anti-police, because that's not at all what we're saying. I think the thing that we're trying to do is hold administration accountable, because it was in the planning that the oversight happened. Because I absolutely agree with Keith that you're just like, the folks on the ground are just doing what they're told, right? And I think that there was just some oversight. And I think where my frustration lies is I know that there were people who asked to be included, and they sit on committees and were told, the folks who sit in the administration, to think about this prior to the implementation. And they said, we will. And then this happened. And then after the fact, they said, hey, why didn't you think about us? And they said, well, you should have talked to emergency planning. And that's not on a student to go and talk to emergency planning. That should be in the administration. So I want to make sure that it is in writing, that they will be considered, that our students and staff and faculty will be considered when these plans are made. So I just wanted to name that. Okay, we've got more folks with their hands raised. I'm not sure what order. Matthew, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so one of the things that comes up routinely, it's the dissemination of information, right? Like even if everything, because it sounds like from what the Vice Chancellor had said, things didn't go as they intended. If we take a face value, that's fine. But like the information wasn't disseminated to everyone that needed to know, right? And we run into this all the time. In our building last month, we could not enter it. We had to get random emails from people because the fire system was down, and the information didn't go out when it should have. And like people arrived at the building when they couldn't go in. And that was just a random occurrence on a random day. But so how do we make sure everyone knows what they need to know in a timely manner? Even if it doesn't initially get sent to staff. There was then a breakdown of faculty in that building who did have that information, not disseminating it to their folks in a timely manner, right? If people are showing up and not knowing what's going on, right? So there is the communication broke down on multiple levels, right? And then just making sure how are we holding all the layers accountable for making sure everyone knows what they need to know to work safely, right? Because if there's legitimate safety concerns, then there's legitimate safety concerns, but then we need to make sure that all the people are coming from that directly. And I think it does need to be brought up in all schools of like who in your school is responsible for making sure that people are getting the information that they need about what's going on in your building in a timely and effective manner, right? So that there is 1 or 2 people, in each department that knows, like, I need to make sure that everyone in this that's going to access this building knows what's going on. Because it's at that level that people know their own building. So there's kind of in department and school accountability that needs to be addressed as well.
And I'll echo that, Matthew, and say 95% of the time that is going to be a staff person, that is going to be the boots on the ground person that's able to communicate this to the respective constituencies in that building and know who is going to be impacted by this. So I love numbers 3 and 4 of holding folks accountable and ensuring that staff are communicated with in these situations. Jacob.
First off, thank you for the the heavy. As someone who's been involved in a couple of resolutions, I know what a difficult lift it is, and you're constantly changing. And you can always remember where your last thought was and which version is in your head versus the version that got written down. Could you just scroll down just real quickly for me to points? I think 6 and 7. Oh, actually, it's actually D. So a little bit of insight as someone who has to assign one card access for my space and has to deal with a lot of the control over the door opener things, especially if it's one card managed one. That's not through UNC Police. That's through one card. So that's an ITS lift, not a UNC Police lift. They may be able to put in the request, and they may have access to it as well. But generally, when I do it, that I'm going through the one card office through the CS Gold system. And I would change the language so it's not at all times, because there are times when the building needs to be locked and then those doors shouldn't let people in. So just I'd be a little bit more specific in that language.
They shouldn't let people in, but they should at all times let people out.
Correct.
Yes. There's a distinction there.
Yep. But my point is just I'm not going to tell you how to clarify the language, just because at some point that can read a little bit awkwardly. And just be aware that if you want to talk about funding, please understand that some of these lifts are going to be very expensive. As someone who's got a quote on adding just one card reader, like to do that on every single potential door that would be accessible is a very expensive and incredibly time consuming lift. And that's the other part of it that's just going back to facilities advocacy. There, like it's going to fall on the campus facilities to do that. And access control shop is swamped and has been since the incident last year. But I do think that I really like 3, 4. I think 6 is really solid. I think that honestly with 5, focusing a little bit more on, again, focus on what you want instead of like trying to come up with avenues for how they should do it. I would leave that burden on administration. Like I understand that staff is so used to having to fix the problem. I'd fight that urge in this case. Is really my main point.
And I'll be more specific than Jacob. I also have a quote out for a one card reader, and this was before the change to the new one card readers, and it was 11 grand. And I would assume probably the new one card readers that are just the tap instead of the slide are more expensive.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and if you're just talking 50 doors around campus and there's more than 50 doors that need it, that becomes a capital improvement project, and then it becomes state controlled, and then suddenly it slows down even more. As someone who is actively in the process of upgrading an elevator, we started this process 1.5 years ago, and it's still going to be down for 2 months because that's the fastest anybody can take it offline. So it's one of those things that, like, in some ways, because of state law, hands are tied in the way things are done. But I do appreciate the idea of like prioritizing those types of situations from a budgetary and operational standpoint. So I'm not going to criticize that point. I think that's an important point. I think it should stay top of line. But yeah, just adding some context.
Some great comments in the chat. And again, we're going to save the chat so that all of this feedback gets passed along to DEI and gets folded into updates to the resolution. Okay. Any final comments? I'm going to kind of transition us away from the conversation, but I will say I'm going to pass along the draft of the resolution in my post-meeting email. And again, I'll try and get that out sometime this afternoon. I'm going to try my hardest to do that. But also, Sarah, could you pass along the date and time of the DEI committee meeting to me and the Zoom link so that I can pass that along to folks in case folks want to come to the more detailed conversation around tweaks and edits?
Absolutely happy to do that. And just for like verbal confirmation, it is this coming Monday, the 4th.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's 2 to 3 p.m. There is a Zoom. I will share that all.
Awesome. So yeah, those are like 2 next steps. You'll be able to kind of internalize this, read through it on your own time, add comments and things in the Teams document. And also you can have the opportunity to come on Monday to the DEI committee meeting and have a further conversation about it. Tweaks and edits will happen. We'll come back in December. We'll have a second reading. And at that second reading, there'll be further discussion and debate and deliberation before a final vote on passage of the resolution. So that's kind of the timeline of things that are going to happen over the next few weeks. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to all of the folks on the DEI committee, the two Sarahs and the Natasha in particular, for taking the lead on this. But yeah, this is great work and love to continue the conversation here. Okay, with that said, Jacob, I don't need to do anything to close out that conversation, do I? There's no like motion.
I mean, no, I mean, basically,
Do we move to table it to the December meeting, or is that?
I think tabling's the wrong term, but no, I mean, honestly, at this point, you can ask if anyone has any other objections or any other comments to make in the debate close, and if not, then you can go ahead and consider the motion carried, because it basically we're still in that point, so it'll just stay alive until the second reading.
Okay.
Yeah, no, all you really need to do is give people a chance to speak one last time.
Yep.
And then move on to the next item.
Jacob's words are, yeah, carried forward. Any final debate or discussion around first reading of resolution 24-04? Excellent. All right, folks, well, we've only got 8 minutes left in the meeting. I'm not going to take up all of that time other than I'm going to open up to the, I love closing our meetings out with the It Takes a Village kudos sections of our agenda, giving folks the floor and an opportunity to kind of share any kudos or things or praise or appreciation of their fellow staff, employees across campus, in your departments, on the forum, wherever else. Just opening up the floor and folks can kind of share. And yeah, we're entering November, which is the Thanksgiving month. So time for thanks and appreciation. Feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, put it in the chat, however you feel comfortable.
With all the leaves falling, thanks to facility for getting the leaves off the sidewalks so I don't fall down and break something.
It does get slippery. The bricks get really slippery.
Look, wet leaves are as slippery as ice.
Mm-hmm. That hill next to the Student Rec Center. Oh my God. Yeah.
This is Liz. I am grateful to our partnership across campus with the people at the Botanical Gardens. I don't know if anybody ever notices all the amazing things they do, like the poison garden by the Health Sciences Library, and also behind bioinformatics. One of their old staff a while ago did a scented garden, and I just love it. Also, I'm grateful that the School of Medicine interviewing process for applicants has provided opportunities for people like me to contribute to those interviews. I've really been enjoying that.
I have one. It is not for a colleague or anyone, or even anyone at the university. Mine is for Isothermal Community College in Spindle, North Carolina. Since I am now a full 5 weeks without internet from the storm, and still no date of when it will be restored, they have let me come and like set up in this lounge that is not used a lot. And they're like, dude, as long as you can use it, use this space as long as you need to, so that I can actually work and do my job. So big shout out to them because they did it and they didn't have to. So, yep.
Thanks for that. Anybody else?
Just a quick shout out to everyone for all the support that you give to all of us on the employee forum, but I know you are also very supportive to folks. It's been a very tough October for many, and I know the next few days, weeks will continue to be tough for many reasons. So just hang in there, take care of yourselves, and hopefully this time next week we will all be feeling a little bit more relieved on one level or the other. And it'll be my birthday, so I'm going to be happy.
Happy
Early
birthday.
birthday. And a happy late birthday to Shayna. Her birthday was yesterday. Halloween baby. Whoop whoop.
All right. I'd like to give a shout out to the forum appreciation that they put on.
Yes, thanks, David. We had a great presence at employee appreciation, all three of our tables, blood drive table, employee forum table, and the voter information table did such great work. And David, I know Scenic was there too and had some great information. Really shout out to everybody at employee appreciation.
I would like to second that because also it was a blast. Like all of y'all that came out to volunteer, it was just so fun. So it was really great to both be that public facing, but also like to just have a great time with each other. So yeah, go and play forum.
Anybody else? Otherwise, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move.
A second.
Keith moves, Arlene seconds. We'll do it by acclamation. Is there anyone opposed to adjourning the meeting? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Happy November. Get out there and vote. Early voting ends on Saturday at 3 p.m. So get out there and vote. If you don't make it for early voting, polls open early in the morning on November 5th. So
Side note, if you have people that are not registered, you can still register at the One Stop Voting for early voting. So if they want to register today or tomorrow, all they have to do is go say, I want to register and vote early, and they can.
But early voting closes at 2, 3?
I think it's
not all
3.
day. Yeah, so just know that
3 p.m.
too. If you go tomorrow.
So if you want to register same day, you have to do it today or tomorrow before the polls close. Otherwise, election day voting, November 5th, you cannot register in advance. So yeah, have to be registered already on election day.
Don't forget your photo ID.
Don't forget your photo ID. Although you can vote without one provisionally with a form. So if you get turned away without an ID.
Your physical UNC1 card counts as ID.
It does
and you
indeed.
can get one for free if all you have is the mobile.
Or if the one that you have does not have an expiration date.
Yay for an active citizenry. Good job, folks.
It never hurts to bring your proof of residence for any reason when you go vote either. Just doesn't hurt. I'm just saying.
All right, folks. I hope you all have a great rest of your Friday. Happy weekend. We'll see you all the next meeting.
See them.
Thanks,
I don't see you
Katie.
sooner.
Bye, folks.
Happy All Hallows, y'all.
Thanks, Matt, for all your help.
Sure.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, Keith.
Katie, see you and Rebecca in person next
Oh, are you coming?
week.
Yay. Are you going to be here both Monday and Tuesday or just Monday?
Wait a minute. No. What are we talking about? What are you talking about?
Oh, you're talking about staff assembly.
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
We have stack on Tuesday, and then there's the one-on-one with the chancellor that got rescheduled to Monday. So
I know.
Okay.
I'm talking about the end of the week.
I just was wondering if you were still in and around Chapel Hill. So if you're not,
No.
we won't see. Okay.
All right. Bye, y'all.
See you at staff assembly.
And Katie, you're going to be there the day before, correct? So I'm just going to meet you all there on Thursday.
I go in on Wednesday.
I mean, I'm going to be driving from Burlington, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just meet you there.
Are you going in? Are you coming in on Wednesday evening or
No, Thursday
morning?
Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's coming straight to the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, me too. Okay, gotcha.
You're staying the night though, Rebecca, on
for Thursday night. I am.
If you want, you can stop at my house and we can drive together from there.
Yeah, I can look at that might work.
Okay.
What time are you leaving?
I don't know. I've not thought that.
We'll
far
figure that
yet.
out later. It's 100% there with you.
I don't know what day of the week it is, so yeah, I have not thought about next week.
That's fair. All right, everybody have a good weekend.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna close down in 30 seconds.
All right. Bye,
so-
Matt.
Send me the recording in the chat once it's available. Thank you, Matt.
Yep, I certainly will. Okay, folks, I'm shutting us down. Take care. Thank you for coming to the meeting today.